morning, everyone, and welcome to TITV. It is Friday, July 25th, and you get me today. I'm filling in for Akash Pashrika. I'm Jessica Lessin, the founder of The Information, and I'm so happy to be here today for what is a wonderful lineup. We have Tom Hale, who is the CEO of Ōura. You all know the Ōura rings. You see them all throughout Silicon Valley. Lots to discuss with him about the future of health tracking, AI, and more. And then I'm excited to sit down with two of my colleagues from The Information. Theo Wayt, our Elon Musk reporter, has a big story out about Optimus, yes, the Tesla robot. He's going to bring us inside that story. And Sara Germano, our weekend reporter on sports, also is going to preview a piece she has coming out this weekend. Of course, it's been a wild week, more AI news across the board. And I want to highlight two breaking news pieces from The Information. Yesterday in Dealmaker, Natasha Mascarenhas reported that Elad Gil is raising a $1 billion fund. Now, we all know Elad, a prolific tech investor. I think he's in Perplexity, Stripe, so many others. But this is really an eye-popping number for a solo GP. And so please check out that story if you're following the space of venture capital. And then this morning in AI Agenda, Stephanie Palazzolo gives a sneak peek of GPT-5. Yes, we are waiting for OpenAI to deliver the next version of its model. It is highly, highly anticipated. And Steph sat down with some folks or person who has been using it and reported that there is meaningful progress in many areas, but including coding. So get ready. We are already in the AI coding wars. But I think if we look in just the coming weeks, there probably is more to come from OpenAI. So make sure to check out that story. All right. Well, I'm especially excited to kick things off with Tom. It seems everywhere we go, we are in the health tracking, the sleep tracking, the glucose, the blood tracking. Of course, the digital quantified self is nothing new in Silicon Valley, but it's definitely, I think, entering a new age. And Tom is here to tell us all about it. So, Tom, welcome to TITV.
Thank you, Jessica. It's a super pleasure to be here this morning. It's a cold, cold morning in San Francisco, but it's very brisk. Makes me feel good.
Makes
Listen,
you feel good.
I think you got it. I think the reality is that the movement started with quantified self, right? People trying to optimize.
Yeah.
Now, then it sort of spread to longevity. Everybody wants to live forever. So, you want to make sure you're making all the right choices and doing all the right things and supplements and cold plunges to kind of live forever. But the reality is it's now really spread, I think, all the way just to sort of basic health.
Mm-hmm.
Those of you don't know, the Ōura ring is a very, very small, comfortable, attractive wearable. It sits on your finger, 8-day battery life. We have been on a tear, Jessica. You're right.
Tell us about the numbers, Tom. What can you share about this tear?
So we last year crossed 500 million in revenue, annual revenue.
Wow. And how do you make money from the hardware and the software?
Yeah, we uniquely make money from the sales of the hardware, and we have different finishes. So if you like gold or silver, you have a choice about what kind of finish you want. But we also have a subscription, and the subscription is basically your data, the updates to the software, the analytics, and the AI, all the things that support the experience of you understanding what's going on with your body. We call it giving your body a voice. So the business was 500 million last year. That was about 120% year-over-year growth. So
wow.
Tear. And the good news is that this year, that growth pace has not just stayed the same, it's actually accelerated.
Wow.
So we're a very well-scaled business. We're profitable. Last year, we raised money from Fidelity and Dexcom at a $5 billion valuation. This, I think, smart ring category is really on fire, and Ōura's leader in it.
So let's talk about the category too, because you've got the smart ring, you've got the Whoop band, you've got, trackers like 8 Sleep for your sleep. How do you differentiate with so many new players on the market?
Yeah, I think the most important thing actually is the accuracy of the form factor.
Mm-hmm.
Basically, if you think about this site on the human body, it's actually an incredible place to measure your physiology. Why is that? Well, It's on the leading edge of your pulse waveform. Your heart pumps, blood goes shooting down your arm. This is kind of the first stop on the way. Contrast that to the wrist, where the blood's on the way back to the heart. It's capillary action. You have bone, sinew, hair, discoloration, tattoos, all the things that make sensing there a little bit more difficult. The signal strength for us is about 50 to 100 times stronger than the wrist. Think about it, Jessica. When you go to the hospital, where do they put the sensor? They put the sensor on the tip of your finger. They don't put it on the back of your wrist. And that's because the strength of the signal is so good there. And what that means for most people is that we can actually see things and make insights that are surprising. For example, one of the classic kind of Ōura experiences is, you get this alert from the app and it says, hey, it looks like you might have some, signs of symptoms coming on. We call it symptom radar. And you say, "Oh, I feel fine. I'm doing great." And then 3 days later, you're lying on the couch surrounded by Kleenex. You've got the flu or a cold, something like that. And you're like, "Geez, I really wish I'd listened to my Oura ring."
Taking some zinc, we would be in a totally different situation. And I
Absolutely.
and I obviously forgot the Apple Watch when I was listing, all the players. So more accuracy on the finger. I have to remember my biology, but you gave me a good walk through it. Walk us through, I think, the category also sort of started in sleep and has broadened. So walk us through the things that you're able to track, for your customers, and also what you think you might be able to track in the future.
Yeah, so, sleep is such a powerful thing, honestly, because sleep is like this sort of universal good. If you have a good
Yeah.
night's sleep, you're gonna feel better the next day, but also if you do it over the long term, it's much better for your health. 3 or 4 years ago, I think people might have characterized us as the best sleep tracker in the world, the most accurate, the most comfortable, the longest battery life, all those things. But since then, we've expanded into a sort of a range of health verticals. The first big step was into, activity, readiness,
Mm.
stress, a measure of resilience, which is about how you recover and respond to daytime stress. But the key, and this is the key to our outrageous growth, is women. One of the things that we were able to do is start to really see the trajectory of a woman during her cycle, and that gave us a lot of power. It gave us the ability to predict when your period might come. It gave us the power to tell you when you might ovulate, when you should, if you're trying to conceive, when you should have intercourse in order to have the best pop probability of having a child. And the thing is that this audience uniquely, I think, has an appeal for a ring. This is a much better, much cuter accessory than an iPhone that's strapped to your wrist. I think that really hit the market perfectly. We had an underserved market, and then now since women's health, we've kind of continued to expand into pregnancy. We're expanding into perimenopause and menopause. This kind of understanding that a woman's physiology changes every 30 days, give or take, and then changes over her life really dramatically. It's a great fit for the Oura Ring. Now, beyond that, we started going into heart health and healthy aging. So
Yeah. You
understand
mentioned longevity. It is the rage right now.
turns out people want to live forever. Isn't that strange?
Do they though? But that can be another topic. We're happy to optimize in the game of living as long as possible, but
I think you want to live healthy. I think our view on that is that living forever sounds pretty terrible, but what you really want to do is have the healthiest, best life for the longest. In
yeah.
fact, our most recent ad campaign is filled with sort of seniors living their best life and raising their finger and saying, "Give us the finger." It's a love. But the reality is that heart health is really one of the foundations of aging, and the other one, of course, is metabolic. And so right now, I'm wearing a blood glucose sensor
Yeah.
from Dexcom. That data makes its way into your Aura application. It's correlated with all sorts of things. You can take a photo of your meal, and we use AI to interpret the values of your meal and give you a little bit of coaching and steering along the way. And so, what we really think about is sleep as this foundation. And if you sleep well, lots of other things in your health are going to go better. And then there are these verticals of your health, each one of which working together is how you build a good plan and good behaviors for a long and healthy life.
And that requires, I mean, I think with your approach, that probably requires a lot of partnerships too across these other, um, health tracking devices. I mean, how do you pull all of that together? And I know in some ways, if we go back to the iPhone on the wrist, as you said, the Apple Watch, I think you also see sort of some people trying to cram as much as possible into one device. Where is the ecosystem on the partnership side, and how do you strategize around the next steps there?
So we have over 800 partners, and today they range from people who are using our data for a purpose. For example, the digital contraceptive Natural Cycles uses our temperature data to make an assessment of whether or not it's a safe day to have intercourse and not get pregnant. That'd be one use case. But the other use case is actually where we ingest data from that wearable or that device or that source. It can be anywhere. Smart scale, could be a
Mhm.
device, CGM sensor. The thing that I think I would emphasize is that while we make a beautiful and very high quality piece of hardware, we are actually a software platform company. And if you think about, the 13 billion hours, of data that we collect, that data is actually the source of insights about people's health. And the thing about that data, of course, is it's highly accurate. It's been, we've been in 80 plus peer-reviewed publications that are saying like this is the most accurate device. And it's continuous. And the continuous stuff is key.
Mm.
The reason why it's important is because if you measure data during the day, that's great. It's wonderful. It's great to know how many steps you took, all that stuff. But the problem is there's all sorts of confounding factors. So extracting meaning from that data can be challenging. Nighttime wear, by contrast, is actually a very predictable kind of series of states that a normal body goes through. And more importantly, not just a normal body, but your normal body. And so understanding you and understanding your baseline through nighttime tracking means that we can see incremental changes that can be indicative of something's going on, which is why we can predict illness very effectively. Like we can warn you of symptoms coming on because we see the early signals of it in this nighttime data where the signal to noise ratio is so good that we can actually extract meaning from it. So that is such a key, I think, to thinking about Ōura. It's a software platform that's going to incorporate data from all sorts of devices and partners. And ultimately, our vision, of course, is that what we want to imagine is a new version of health. Today, health is episodic. You go once a year, they get a checkup. The doctor takes your temperature, your blood pressure, measures your height, says things are going great. How are you sleeping? What's the idea of a doctor in your pocket, I think, is really impressive because you might have already a smartphone, and that smartphone is a supercomputer. And by the way, it's also about to be an AI platform. You have a wearable that's on your body 24/7, and then there's a machine intelligence that's overlooking you. And if you think about the problems of healthcare systems today, and by the way, we should all acknowledge that health is, sort of utterly fundamentally broken. The incentives are wrong, the service is wrong, we spend way too much money for terrible outcomes. Our vision is to really see that transform. And if you can imagine a world where one, you have access to care that you didn't have before because some portion of it is either augmented or delivered by machine, right? This sort of
Mhm.
AI doctor in your pocket, I think, is a vision that is coming. And looking at Trump's announcements this week, it's only going to accelerate. I think if you look at that, you couple that idea with this notion that like you can actually look across someone's data and build a model for them, right?
Yep.
Who they are and be able to make predictions about what's going to happen in their life and their health. I think that's supremely valuable. And so our vision is that if we can move healthcare away from interventionist care at the end of life, which is where most of the cost is, to preventative care earlier in life and being kind of a companion with you throughout your life. Think of the woman who goes from, menstruation to contraception to conception to pregnancy to postpartum to perimenopause to menopause and then to healthy
I
aging.
have no idea who you're talking about, Tom.
I'm
No
sure
idea who you're
that
talking about. I have 3 kids, and I'm 42, but yes, I'm
you are
familiar.
you are absolutely in the sweet spot, by the way.
Uh,
You are
well,
absolutely
I'm
in the sweet
gonna have
spot.
to remember you said that, yes. But, well, let's and before I let you go, let's talk a bit about AI because I also have to say the doctor in your pocket technology. I mean, I've been covering Silicon Valley 20 years, and I've been talking to startups with this ambition for 20 years. Now, obviously, technology is advanced. We were talking about very different devices back then, but we also have AI. So what are you doing today with AI? And maybe 12 months from now, how do you think AI will fit into your platform?
I mean, obviously, every topic, I think our time to AI in this call was like 5.5 minutes, which is pretty good.
Yeah, I
Usually
know.
right to it. But uh, the thing that's really happening here, and it's happening faster than I think maybe I would have believed it could, is that there is the ability to have an interaction that provides insight. Most wearables, most devices provide data. Maybe there's a regulatory kind of constraint that says this is, you can't change the device once it's been released because it needs to be safe and effective, and the FDA needs. The thing about AI is it's incredibly fluid and incredibly malleable, and you can move it very quickly. So for us today, we have an AI in the product which you can chat with, and it knows everything about you, and it has your context. It can give you insights and draw graphs. It's a way of both inspecting your data, but also gaining insight. It sort of tells you things, somebody I was talking to recently who's a customer. I said, "So what do you like about the Ōura Advisor, which is what it's called?" He said, "Oh, I love that it tells me to take walks with my dog, and he remembers my dog's name."
Wow.
And I find that incredible. And the thing is, like, if you think about someone who's going to change your behavior, if that someone knows you and knows things about you and has a sense of like whether today's a good day for you to take, some exercise or not, or that is so powerful. And I think AI is uniquely suited to that. Now, the second thing that's happening, of course, is that the ability to have data that is continuous and high quality that feeds that I think is also a game changer, because the thing about the Aura Ring is that people wear it 24/7. And so you have this kind of continuous signal. So that ability to sort of match a continuous signal with intelligence, I think, is really key. Where we think this all ends up, of course, is that there will be clinicians who will be more effective and more efficient because an AI assistant has, taken the work out of it and done some, preliminary assessment and maybe provided the clinically relevant data to the clinician. But we also know that actually people want to self-manage their care. One of the things that I find most interesting and shocking about Aura is it turns out roughly 1 in 4 of Aura members, we have millions of members, by the way, this is not a small number, millions of members, 1 in 4 is using Aura to manage their chronic illness. And that ranges from heart disease to, type 2 diabetes, all the way down to this long tail of kind of diseases like lupus or inflammation or ME/CFS or postural orthopedic tachycardia syndrome, which is when you stand up, your heart, races and your blood pressure drops. Like, they want to know what's going on in their body minute to minute in a very kind of like way that helps them manage their chronic illness. Well, it turns out 6 out of 10 people in the United States have a chronic illness.
Mm.
So we're already in the healthcare business using AI to guide them. And the thing is I think chat is one modality, and we'll see that evolve. I think the way apps are being, kind of presented and information being presented is going to change. You're going to have parts of apps that are really the AI talking to you directly through the app, right? Rather than you prompting and asking a question, it's
Yeah.
taking data, creating a prompt, and talking to you. And I think that's a game changer. That's where like the doctor in your pocket vision, I think it's compelling. I think it's becoming reality now much sooner, much faster than we thought.
Yeah. Well, Tom, well, congrats on the big revenue run. It sounds like you guys are really, at the heart of this movement, and it will be very exciting to check back in, and see how all these pieces are coming together. So, thanks so much for joining us.
Appreciate it, Jessica. Have a great day. Thanks a lot.
Thank you.
Bye.
Wow. Well, I didn't realize that really women have been so key to this Aura run that Tom shared those numbers with us about. So, very excited to see where that goes. And I know we'd love to hear from our viewers about more digital health tracking related questions. We could do many shows on that. So, speaking of a topic that keeps on giving, this week, my colleague Theo Wayt had a very interesting story about what is happening with Tesla's Optimus robot. So obviously this week, and I look forward to talking to Theo about Tesla earnings that also came out, which weren't so rosy. It seems like when they're not so rosy on the car front, Elon starts talking a lot more about the robo front. So let's bring on Theo and have him peel back the curtain on this story. Great to see you, Theo. How's it going?
Good. Thanks for having me on.
So, tell our viewers the crux of what you reported this week in terms of the progress that manufacturing the Optimus is really making.
So basically, we understand that Elon Musk outlined this goal earlier this year to make 5,000 Optimus robots this year. And it seems like they're not on track to hit it based on my reporting. It is possible they could drastically ramp things up in the remainder of the year, but it doesn't seem like they're on track at the moment. A big
And they're in the hundreds. Is that where you paste them at the moment? Or
That's right. That's right. They're in the hundreds, not the thousands. And a big reason why is that hands are incredibly complicated. And in the robotics industry, there's this debate about whether robots actually need hands. And Elon falls very much on the they do need hands side, but they're incredibly, incredibly hard to pull off. And that's a major bottleneck for them at the moment.
has Elon said why? I mean, it seems to me like he's got such this vision of the humanoid, right? I mean, he has outlined, throngs of Optimus. What's the plural of Optimus? Optimi? Rounds of Optimi
Probably.
descending on Mars. I guess there's sort of just from a visual sense, they need hands, but, is it also just in terms of the breadth of tasks that he envisions them doing?
I think it's both. Yeah. There are definitely people inside Tesla that are thinking about how to deploy Optimus robots in factories that acknowledge, there are a lot of things you could just do with pinchers or with even like a non-human form at all. But Elon's vision is very much you're going to have this robot in your house. It's going to cook for you. It's going to clean. You're going to go to a restaurant. It'll be serving you. And to have one model that can accomplish all of those tasks, you kind of do need hands. And it looks cooler.
Yeah. Well, we'll talk a bit too about where you think the Optimus, like its significance for Tesla in this moment.
I think it's getting a lot more play because EV sales are going down. As you pointed out in the intro, the more that EV sales fall, Tesla revenue this week was down 12%. The more Elon wants to sell people on his very long-term vision for the company. But I think a lot of analysts are probably pretty skeptical.
Yep.
He was asked on earnings, how will Optimus contribute to revenue in the next 2 to 3 years? And he basically didn't answer the question. He said he was only comfortable talking 5 years down the line. And so, that's not great when you're reporting quarter over quarter declines consistently.
That's also interesting because Elon Musk does not shy from predictions, but maybe he shies from revenue predictions on earnings calls. Maybe that's a little more. But that kind of leads me to my next question, which like, is it a big deal if Optimus, misses this deadline in an extraordinary way? I mean, I think Elon is known for really throwing very, very, very ambitious timelines out there. Obviously, he is innovating in places that others are not. But do you think in this moment with the scrutiny or just the moment, does this sort of matter, or are people just discounting his timeline anyway, and a little progress may go a long way in their estimation?
I think the idea that Elon makes demands and makes promises that aren't always met, that's not novel. Anyone that's followed him, understands that. But the stakes are a lot higher now just
Mhm.
because of the pressure on the EV business. I think that if Apple Vision Pro is a flop, who cares? iPhone sales are still at least, stable, if not going up, and that for a company like Apple, it's not a big deal to have this like longer term bet that might not be going so well. For Tesla, if the core business is, you know, not doing very well at all, then it does raise the stakes for what he says is going to be the future of the company. I mean, he's made the claim that Tesla will be worth $25 trillion someday because of Optimus. And that's like, half the current value of the S&P. It's crazy.
You've also got some great details in the story just about the team behind Optimus. Tell us what you've learned and how they're sort of being handled internally.
It's interesting. Elon is very willing to make kind of public pronouncements about the future of Optimus and, post videos and pictures of the robots. But within Tesla, there's a lot of secrecy around the program. People who are in the Tesla R&D facility in Palo Alto that aren't working on Optimus, they can't get into the Optimus section. In the factory where they're making the robots in Fremont, California, there's kind of an extra level of security to get to from the car areas to the robot areas. And internally on the org chart, we understand that no one can see employees working on Optimus. So if you're trying to understand the breadth of the program, or maybe you're going to go make a robotic startup and you want to poach some people, it's much harder to find than other people in other parts of the company.
That's interesting. So even the internal org chart, people can't find them. It reminds me, many years ago, I was interviewing Elon, and what struck me was how paranoid he was about spying, and especially Chinese spying back then too. So obviously that's true across all of the products, but I wonder if, if there's an element of that at play, which um, one might understand. Well, Theo, what else? What's next for you when you think of Elon, Tesla? I mean, the most what's so fun and about the coverage is all the companies are tying together, right? I mean, we've got XAI, which is on the cusp of, another crazy funding, another huge colossus. But just sort of tell us a little bit about what questions are next in your mind as it relates to covering Elon and his empire.
Yeah, I think the overlap between Tesla and XAI is going to be really interesting.
Mhm.
They've Elon has said they're going to put Grok chatbot into Optimus, and they're going to put Grok into Teslas, and obviously there's some overlap between AI training for Tesla's products that would probably benefit from some of what XAI is doing. And there's also this question that Elon himself hasn't really uh, been in support of, but this idea that maybe someday there could be an XAI Tesla merger, or more kind of financial intertwining of these two companies. And I think that question is always going to be there as long as he's CEO of all of them. And I
Yeah.
want
And we saw the XAI, and I'm with you. It feels like when you think of the extraordinary capital that is going to be required on AI and how influx some of these other companies and their business models are, it does seem like there are a couple more turns of the wheel and probably a lot of bankers trying to figure that out right now. Well, Theo, thank you so much for joining us. Congrats on a really great and informative piece. And we'll be looking for the next one and have you back on soon.
Thank you.
Thanks. I think and really encourage everyone to deep dive into this story. There's so much that is not specific to the future of robotics, obviously a growing theme, but also just the continued operations of Tesla. So, a great story this week and one that we will certainly be tracking. Now let's bring on Sara Germano, switching gears entirely. Obviously, we have in our weekend section been covering the business of sports more and more as sports is intertwined with technology, tech investing, tech investors. I'm excited to have her on to talk about an upcoming story. Welcome, Sara.
Hi, Jessica. Thanks for having me.
So you are writing for this weekend about sports leagues becoming tech investors. Tell us what you found and then we can dig into it.
Definitely. I think this is actually one of the biggest uncovered stories in the wider sports industry, which is that, look, we all know sports leagues, especially in the US, are doing huge business. They're getting, you know, multi-billion dollar media rights contracts, like valuations are up. The Lakers just sold for $10 billion. And where is that money going? The leagues are now deciding that they need to be very serious about investing in tech and investing in the next companies that will change the sports landscape, change the media and broadcasting landscape. And they've quietly put together their own venture capital and investing teams, and in some cases, incubator programs.
Wow. Well, I want to get into some of the specifics, but I also just why? Is it like I've got to say there's a little bit of just like FOMO of tech investing, but it's these are smart people. It must be more strategic. Is it because they think they need to have direct ownership and stakes in the technologies that are going to drive the future of the business, or maybe is it just FOMO?
I think it's a few things. One, it's definitely like you say, these leagues realize that they could have a greater return if they're actively invested in the companies that are working on whatever may be the next piece of technology that transforms media broadcast or the fan experience. If you go to a sports stadium today, it's a lot different than it even was 10, 15 years ago. There's better sound, there's better, they want to make it easier for you to buy concessions. And there's lots of companies working on making that more seamless. And these leagues are saying, let's, take a stake in these companies that are actually building things that will make our overall product better. The other thing is that, when I've spoken to the heads of investment at a variety of these leagues, they tell me that, look, it's media companies are paying them billions of dollars a year to broadcast their games. And they're also doing so for a long period of time, 10 years or so. When you think about where sports leagues are today and what broadcasts are like today and the fan experience is like today, and trying to extrapolate what that might look like in 10 years' time, they realize they have to be good partners to these media companies to say, like, we can't just accept these checks from Disney and Comcast and Amazon and Apple and, just put a sports product out on the field. We have to be making a better product and thinking 5, 10 steps ahead about making the sports leagues of the future.
Mm. It's fascinating. Yes, so much comes down to those rights, and just the war that we've seen is really buoying all of this. Okay, let's get into some of the specifics. Give me a league, give me an example of the kinds of things they're investing in.
Right. So I went to Las Vegas a couple weeks ago where the NBA hosted its annual summer league, which is just like an off-season basketball tournament for rookies. But what they really do is that they have this incubator program called Launchpad. It's now in its fourth year. They invite a bunch of different startups to come and participate. And the projects that they were working on were really interesting. There's this one company called One Court, founded by a bunch of very recent University of Washington graduates. They make a haptic device that kind of looks like a little iPad, but it's for visually impaired people to follow sports games in real time by touch. They've been able to translate, you know, audio feeds, visual feeds, and convert that into a haptic system that lets them follow in real time rather than just relying on audio feed from a broadcast. So that's very interesting, and that company is actually being rolled out not only at NBA games, but also FIFA adopted their technology this summer for the Club World Cup. Um, Another example is this company called Edge Sound Research. What they do is they make these discs that can be added on to seats, theoretically in stadiums, but also your lazy boy at home or even your favorite chair at your local sports bar. And they are able to transmit sound and vibration from live sports games to make it feel like you're actually sitting courtside and you get like a more immersive experience. Um, the thought there that is that that company and that technology could be used to feed into virtual reality hardware or, again, any other fan experience vendor. But what's interesting about them is that they've received investment not only from the NBA, but from MLS and the U.S. Tennis Association. So there's a lot of interest around the sports leagues and this kind of technology.
Awesome. Is the NFL doing anything, the sort of big kahuna in the sports world?
It's a great question. So they have their own venture fund called 32 Equity. They're probably both the quietest about this, but also the 800-pound gorilla in the room. They carry the most weight. They're obviously the most watched sport in America and have the richest media contract in the world. So they're taking, from what I'm told, larger stakes. They're writing somewhat bigger checks into companies that they're investing in. For example, Noble, which is a, a, a sports apparel, like athletic apparel company. Um, they've invested in like a lot of companies that like Fanatics also, which a lot of people are familiar with. If you want to buy a sports jersey, you've got it in through Fanatics now. They're probably the quietest of all the major sports leagues about their venture strategy. But what I've heard is that and have actually seen with my own eyes is that the other sports leagues, NBA, MLS, MLB, USTA, you name it, US Olympic Committee, they're all very collegial and sharing tips and cross investing in each other's startups that they're finding.
I like it. The sports syndication VC circuit. I wonder, we had Tom Hale, the CEO of Ōura Ring, on earlier, and there've got to be great companies in the overall fitness tracking, athletic performance space. And I know those, at least in Silicon Valley, in this moment, could have some avid customers. Have you come across anything in that space, or is that not as much of a focus for these funds at the moment?
No, I'm so glad you brought that up. There are wearables technologies that are also being looked into and invested by the league. So one of the Launchpad participants this year is a company called Somni, and they make a smart headband for sleeping. They use a kind of neurotechnology to map your own brain activity and help modify the signals in your brain when you go to sleep to help you fall asleep faster, have deeper sleep, have REM sleep. And so the sports leagues are very interested in any kind of technology, any kind of product really that can improve athlete performance, and can also be extrapolated to the everyday, customer. The thinking being if it's good enough for, LeBron James,
Yeah.
it should be if it can help him fall asleep, it can probably help you fall asleep.
Yeah. Well, I think we should keep an eye out for those products. And before we let you go, Sarah, what else in you spend all your time sort of deep in the weeds of Silicon Valley technology, sports, women's sports. What give us a theme or two that you're thinking about now that you think we should pay attention to?
Absolutely. I think one of the biggest storylines emerging this year is the sports industry and any convergence with AI. And there's a couple points to this. Number one, to the discussion we're having today, each of these sports leagues is very interested in what AI could do for entertainment, for sports production, whether that's, enhancing the digital production, translating live games into different languages. So there's the focus on AI from an investing perspective. There's also the sort of real world experience of how AI is affecting the way that consumers understand sports, especially on social media. It's no secret that the sports leagues rely on social media for highlight clips and, discussion of games and, which players are being traded where and so forth. So with the advent of like deep fakes, of AI generated deep fakes in sports, it's something that the leagues are concerned about and are deep in the process now of trying to figure out what their policies are and how to combat it. Just this week, there was a headline that LeBron James himself has sent cease and desist letters to AI companies that were making erroneous deepfakes about him. So I think that's actually the next frontier is the ways that AI are impacting the sports industry.
Yeah, and you've done some great work for us that was ahead of some of this news on that as well. Well, Sarah, everyone looks, myself included, looks forward to reading the piece. And thank you so much for joining us today on TITV.
Pleasure to be here.
Wonderful. Well, I gotta say, I think that it's just such a wild time. If we need more examples of the exuberance in tech investing in AI, we've now got all the sports leagues with a really big seat at the table. So that is our show for today. I want to thank AWS, who is our presenting partner for TITV. And I want to encourage everyone to tune in next week. We will be continuing on this road of big tech earnings, continuing to follow some of the fallout and follow up from the AI plan that came out of the Trump administration. And as always, breaking a lot of news. Until then, I'm Jessica Lessin, the founder of The Information. Have a great weekend.